I don't have acid reflux anymore. My digestive tract is fantastic. I don't have social anxiety. I don't have acne anymore. I don't have the same issues that I had back then because I learned how to alter and change my microbiome. This is all about the microbiome. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Jacque Show. Today, I'm going to be breaking down something that may be a little bit more foreign to you than I realized, and that's going to be talking about the microbiome. And so I want to talk about what is the microbiome, right? How can we damage the microbiome? And ultimately, what's its purpose? Why is it so important? Why is there such a big emphasis on correcting and fixing the microbiome now more than there ever has been? More and more technology is coming out. We're doing things like fecal oral transplants where we're literally putting stool in a capsule or nasal to try to reverse serious diseases within the body. Why the heck is it important? So let's get into it. So the microbiome here. What is the microbiome? So the microbiome is basically a collection of all of these little microorganisms that live within our bodies. And I want you to visualize a microbiome kind of being like your family, right? Everyone in the family serves their purpose. They have their duties. They have their interactions. They have to all be able to communicate with each other, right? And say, for example, one of the children is being a little bit more unruly, right? So that child starts to act out. The personality gets bigger. They're not doing the job that they're supposed to do, right? And so then all of the other people in the family are then affected by that particular, bacteria, if you will, that child. Okay, so the same thing can happen down in the gut. Now, if we have an overgrowth of bad bacteria, that bad bacteria can then have an impact on the good. It's all about balance. Microbiome is all about balance. Now, with traditional medicine, they don't care. They don't care about this microbiome. They really don't at all. Right. I just had a call with one of my coaching clients that I teach what I do. And he was like, I had a patient come in and he has cellulitis going on in his leg. And they said that he went and he got a stool test done. And then I tried to tell him he needed to get a stool test. And he said, well, my doctor already gave me a stool test, so I think I'm good. It's like, no, there is zero comparison at all between what a medical doctor is going to test and what we test. Right. Because when it comes to medical doctors are only going to test what they can treat. Their job is to find some sort of pathogenic invasion, if you will, whether it's a C. difficile, which is a very commonly gathered bacteria that you can get in nursing homes and hospitals, or if it's like a staph infection, same thing, you can get it in nursing homes, hospitals, or if it's salmonella, E. coli, one of these other things that just migrate into the body and cause harm and disruption. That's all they care about because that's all they can work to treat. They've got antibiotics for that, right? But when we talk about the microbiome, those things aren't even a part of it. Those are pathogenic. Those come from the outside. When we ingest them in, it is up to our natural ecosystem, our natural microbiome to be able to defend against outside invaders. Right? So we need this beautiful balance between the goods and the bads. We have what are known as opportunistic bacteria that live within our body in harmony. They're kept at bay. They're not really causing any problems. But when we start to lower the good guys down, right, and we label those probiotics, when we lower our probiotics, then the opportunistic bacteria start to get stronger. When the opportunistic start to get stronger, we can see high correlation and causation between autoimmune diseases, brain fog, chronic fatigue, hormonal imbalances, thyroid issues, right? Our microbiome, we're going to do deep dives into each cell and what they do in a following podcast because it's a little bit nerdy and I want to break this down for you. But when we have this imbalance that takes place and people are just like, well, if my gut's messed up, I'll take antibiotics because that's all they've been raised to do. Right? When you're a child and your parents take you to the doctor when you're a child, you have an earache or you have something else going on, what do they give you? They're going to give you antibiotics. So they're killing all throughout your life. And then when you have kids, you do the same thing. You kill. When in reality, the guy who created antibiotics, that was the big fear, is that he was afraid that antibiotics were going to basically be distributed like candy. And that's ultimately what's happened. And what is the negative impact on that? The negative impact is we're starting to see permanent alterations in the gut microbiome. These bacteria, these good guys, cannot handle any more slaughtering from these antibiotics. And now, when we talk about what can cause an imbalance in the microbiome, antibiotics are one of the biggest threats. Automatically, you can take one round of antibiotics. First off, it probably won't work to eradicate whatever the infection is you're working to treat. The other thing it's going to do is lower your good guys, your good bacteria. And then if you don't do anything afterwards to replace and replenish those bacteria, then you're going to be more susceptible to further infections. We've all heard stories of patients who are like, you know what, or friends who are like, I was great. And then I had this particular infection. They gave me this antibiotic and my gut has never been the same since. Or I took this medication and my gut has never been the same since. Birth control, huge with microbiome disruption. If you're on any birth control at all, short of using condoms, you're altering your hormones, you're altering your gut microbiome. Okay? Past that, right? So we have these threats, we have these medications that can cause alterations in our gut microbiome. Antibiotics are huge. Like I said, birth controls are huge. Antidepressants are huge as well. We'll see a lot of changes in gut motility. And if you're like, well, what the heck is gut motility? It's how well are your bowels moving? How many bowel movements are you having a day? This statistic still blows people away when I say you're supposed to have anywhere from 2 to 4 bowel movements a day. Healthy, nice, beautiful, poopy bowel movements a day. If you don't, then there is some sort of an imbalance in your microbiome. Okay? Could be stress induced, but that stress is still going to have an impact on your microbiome. Okay, so let's segue into that. What's another thing that can cause a disruption in microbiome? Stress. Stress is huge with that. Stress will also lower your immune system in your gut, leaving you more susceptible to other diseases. I've talked about this study that was done multiple times through this podcast here, but they did a study on inmates in prison. And I love the study, and that's why I keep using it. And they basically gave them cups of Giardia to drink. It's a parasite, very common parasite. It gives you traveler's diarrhea. It's one of the main reasons why if you go to a foreign country, come back, you have gut issues, your doc will test you for Giardia. Okay. If you have Giardia in this instance, right, we gave it, or they gave it to these people in prison, and they saw that some people had resolutions of symptoms that weren't very severe after maybe 2 days or so. And then you had people who couldn't quite get rid of the Giardia infection. It stuck around, hung around, gave them horrible symptoms for a long period of time. And to me, I'm like, just let them ride out their whole sentence with Giardia. That'd be hilarious because of their crimes that they committed. But they didn't. They gave them some stuff to try to kill off the Giardia infection. And so what they found is that the patients with higher secretory IgA or higher immune system function was able to combat the Giardia infection. And those with low secretory IgA were not able to combat that Giardia infection. So what lowers secretory IgA is going to be stress. It's one of the big ones. Stress can do it. Gluten, but we didn't quite get to the standard American diet yet. So stress can alter your microbiome. The other thing that stress will do, chronic stress, okay, chronic stress, what it will do is cause you to start to deteriorate your muscle, and it will start to deteriorate your digestive tract. And you'll start releasing glutamine and things like that from your gut. And then we develop leaky gut, which means when we have microbiome imbalances, right? We have too many bad guys that are overgrowing, say Candida, for an example. Then Candida can hop out into the bloodstream and go systemic. Okay, new research is showing that when we have beta amyloid plaquing that takes place in our brain, that's actually a healthy defense against Candida or yeast that cross the blood-brain barrier, right? And so we're seeing these high correlations and causations with the gut and pretty much everything that happens in our bodies. So stress will degrade your immune system. It will degrade your digestive tract, and it will also cause imbalance in your blood sugar, which will then aid in your consumption of the standard American diet. So let's go there. If you are eating according to the food pyramid, you are going to look like the food pyramid. It's as simple as that. If your highest macronutrient category is going to be carbohydrates, highest overall, and you're not getting any protein, and you're not getting healthy fats in or anything, you're going to be very overweight. It's that simple. What calories are you giving your body? What are you building your body with? Are you building your body with nutrients from McDonald's? Or are you building your body with nutrients that you created in your own kitchen? Right? We need to slow down. We need to eat. We need to meal prep because we're busier than we ever have been, I think, in the history of our creation. Okay? Standard American diet is horrible. Absolutely, absolutely horrible. What are we told to do? Avoid fat, get tons of carbs in, breads, pastas, right? They call them whole grains. They're like, oh, whole grains are healthy. Oh, it's good stuff. No, it's terrible for you, right? And carbohydrates, this is something I should probably do a full podcast on, the macronutrients and what they are, because I'm honestly surprised a lot of times people don't know what a carbohydrate is. They don't know. They assume that carbs are like your baked goods, right? So like your donuts, your eclairs. If you're in Pittsburgh, you can get eclairs and cannolis and all those places from the little shop. It's Muio's in Monroeville. And if you eat it and you consume it, we know the family, they're phenomenal people. You'll love it, but you may be a little upset in the belly afterwards, but it's worth the treat. Yeah, shout out to Muio's in Monroeville, Pennsylvania. Anyways, I digress and salivate at the same time. If we're eating these things on a consistent basis, what's going to happen is we're going to favor a carbohydrate macronutrient. And so what that's going to do, every time you eat any carbohydrate, it's going to break down into a smaller molecule, which is going to be glucose. Okay. Or for fruit, it's going to be fructose, some form of a sugar molecule for the body. People know sugar is bad, right? So like, well, I avoid sugar, but I eat bread. I eat this, I eat that, I eat this, or I drink this, right? There's sugar in pretty much everything that we consume if we're not careful. So if we're constantly eating sugar, right? Sugar is a fertilizer for the bad guys in our microbiome, right? And if you had a garden outside, you wouldn't specifically feed the weeds because the weeds will choke out your crop. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't look good for you. You wouldn't have a harvest. But what we're doing, see, the big difference, and this is, I wish, and I'm happy at the same time that we can't see it, but I wish we could see inside of us when we make these mistakes, when we make these choices, so that way we learn, right? Like if we do that to the garden and the garden dies, like we see it. It happens very quickly. But because our gut is inside of us, we can't see it. We can't just look down and be like, oh, crap, I made weeds grow in there. If you're eating the standard American diet, if you're eating high processed carbs and you're not eating vegetables and you're not eating healthy fruits, right? Berries in particular. I love berries. Kids love berries. Eat these things and it can be prebiotics for your good bacteria. Fruits, this is a hot debate right now. I never would have thought this would have been an issue. People are saying, don't eat fruit. Tell those people to shut up. They don't know what they're talking about. Fruit's going to have high antioxidant content to it, right? So it's going to help with oxidative stress, any oxidative damage. Red colored fruits and vegetables and things are going to have red polyphenols in there. Those polyphenols are going to help very, very specific categories of bacteria, good bacteria, to grow in your microbiome. So if we're cutting out that whole food source, then we're going to have to supplement in with some form of a prebiotic to get those probiotics to survive, right? We're either feeding our microbiome, the good guys in your microbiome, or we're feeding the bad guys in the microbiome. And every single piece of food, drink, etc., that you put into your body is doing one or the other. And then that's going to roll out and have a ripple effect of either I'm going to create more health in the body, or it's going to say, I'm going to produce more disease in the body. So every time you pick up a fork, you pick up a spoon, look at what you're eating. Now, if we want to split hairs and talk about the timing and stuff of like when to eat this, when to eat that, there's a great resource, and I hope to have her on the podcast at some point. Her name is the Glucose Goddess. She's been on a lot of other podcasts, and she has these really easy to follow like graphs as to like when to eat certain foods in order to minimize your blood sugar spike. Okay, so it's really cool, really neat. So Glucose Goddess, you can find her all over Instagram. So if we're eating this way, again, we're either feeding the good guys or the bad guys in the microbiome, and then that's going to have a negative health impact depending on the duration in which we continue to feed these guys. So another thing with the whole grain and standard American diet, that's another one that's one of those hot buttons that I told people to avoid for 30 days, and nobody really followed up on me on the full 30 days. I have patients that have been gluten-free for a while and they're freaking loving it. But the standard American people do not like the Doc Jacque recommendation of no gluten. Apparently they couldn't do it. Or if you did and you didn't reach out, that's fine. Reach out and let me know how you liked it. But right, gluten is one of those ones that's going to cause a massive impact on the gut, whether you like it or not. It'll cause neurological degeneration, neurological disease within the body. It'll cause and can cause decrease in stomach acid production. So then we have more infections that are going to roll into our digestive tract. So more threats are going to readily be coming through. It causes leaky gut. It causes our immune system to basically, every time you eat gluten, just drop bombs on your gut. The more you continue to do that, the more likely you are to have some form of disease that's going to set in. Okay. And when people try to battle me with gluten, it's because we don't know the widespread cause and effect of gluten yet. And I think a lot of people are trying to turn the blind eye to it. More and more doctors, not just functional medicine or naturopaths, but more and more medical doctors, like, just avoid that crap. It has zero nutritional value to it at all. It's not good. It's not good at all. But we don't know what all it causes, right? We can't say, well, gluten causes cancer, when in fact it kind of indirectly does. We can't say gluten causes anything really other than celiac. Like, oh, if you have celiac, avoid gluten, right? What if you can't stop gaining weight? Avoid gluten. What if you have hormonal issues? What if you have infertility? What if you have headaches? What if you have some just, rash on your skin? Avoid gluten. 9 times out of 10, the stuff's going to go away. Why is that? Because gluten impacts your microbiome. So the more proper choices we can make to protect our microbiome, the better your body will be. All right, so let's talk about other things that damage your microbiome. Okay, so we're kind of hopefully getting an idea of what the microbiome is. Let's talk about more things that damage it. So we talked about the stress, we talked about gluten. Alcohol is another one that'll absolutely wreak havoc on your gut. Now, be brutally honest with myself, with all y'all, I don't drink very often. When I do, my stomach stays sour for a while, and I really don't even drink anything with gluten in it. And by not really, I don't drink anything with gluten in it. Let's just make more of a bold statement. And my stomach was sour for a few days, didn't really have much of an appetite, headache a couple of days, my body was achy, didn't have motivation to go to the gym. And that was just from one night of drinking a couple of drinks. That's why I don't do it. It's toxic. Right? It's toxic to your body. It's toxic to your liver. Don't do it. If you want to have a healthy microbiome, 0 amounts of alcohol is good for you. More and more people are coming out and saying that. Not just the random morons that are on Instagram just to try to get famous. They're like, oh my gosh, you know what I just found out? Alcohol is bad for you. You just don't drink alcohol because alcohol causes so many bad things in your body to happen. And it's just like alcohol is bad. Drives me crazy. Absolutely crazy. They don't know anything about it. They don't know anything about the science about it. And it's not a freaking rocket science statement to make. When you drink and you get drunk. You're drunk because you are intoxicated. Toxins. You're intoxicated. You put toxins into your body. Of course, it's not good for you. I'm talking about now the literature that's coming out, and it used to be like 1 glass of red wine and things like that can be beneficial for you. They're coming out and saying no amounts, no drinks at all are really beneficial for you. Now, the red wine thing, it's kind of like I feel like it's okay every once in a while for this reason. One, if you get like a vegan based or like an organic wine, you're not going to have pesticide on the grapes. Vegan, you're not going to have egg that is strained through. A lot of people have egg sensitivities or egg allergies. So if you do something like that, the red in that wine does have red polyphenols, which can help for proper, probiotic growth. However, you are taking in sugar in with that, which can cause fermentation or growth of these bad bacteria. And then, yes, you are putting an impact on the liver as well, and you're hoping that your body can detox it. So kind of back and forth on the red wine one, but for the most part, just don't drink if you want to have a healthy gut. Short and simple, okay? And if you want to correct the gut and you're going to invest into yourself and do one of our programs, and you're like, I'm going to do it, don't ask if you can drink alcohol on it. Just don't, because the answer is going to be no. And you already know the answer. Most people with the questions that they want to ask and then they do ask already know the answers ahead of time. They're just afraid to commit to it. So we've got that. Alcohol out of the way there. Stress is going to be the big one too. And then not getting enough sleep is another one that's going to cause an alteration of the microbiome. Not only that, but this is another one that's going to have a direct as well as indirect impact on your gut. When we have an abnormal night of sleep, what's going to happen is we're going to start craving more carbs the next day. And again, at the end of this, I hope that you guys realize this. Your carbohydrate intake is going to dictate how well your microbiome is functioning. So if you're waking up and you're like, man, I'm hungry, I just want to eat 4 pieces of toast, or I want to get a scone, or I want this, that, some other donut, pastry, etc., and you're like, I'm just throwing that down the hatch. And then you continue your day like that, where you're just going through and you're riding the blood sugar spike all day long. You just boom, boom, boom. And you're like a drug addict just getting your hits, right? Because when you wake up, you're sleepy, your blood sugar is being balanced, your insulin's going to be off, your production is going to be off, you didn't burn fat. You cut down your ability to burn fat the next day as well. So you tend to just gain weight, and then it becomes this repetitive pattern that you develop. Eat the same foods, becomes the same routine. Carbs are always easier to eat than stacking in a protein, even though you can do a protein shake, which, by the way, segue, protein is somehow, I don't know how, protein is one of the most underconsumed macronutrients now. I mean, my nickname in high school, one of them was protein. I don't understand how this happened, but nobody's eating protein anymore. It's like people are afraid of it. And there's a guy on Instagram that I respect. He was like, protein should be it shouldn't even be counted as a calorie. Like, you should just consider eating as much protein as humanly possible. Now, they wouldn't do that per se, because it can theoretically convert into sugar if you don't stack your other macronutrients properly. But for the most part, you're not going to overeat protein. If you do, your body's going to shut down your hunger sensation, so you're not going to be hungry. So it's really difficult to overdo it with protein. But if you are stuck and you're like, hey, I can't stop eating carbs, what would you recommend? That I would recommend start adding in proteins and fats with every one of your meals, and then cut the carbs down at the very end, right? So eat you can do like starchy vegetables, protein, fats, and then if you want some sort of a carb, save it to the very end for 2 reasons. One, it'll level out your blood sugar spike, but also you won't eat as much of that carb at the very end. Or if you do, it's like you worked really well and you're like, hey, I'm going to reward myself. I ate all my good stuff. Now I'm going to eat a sweet potato or whatever it might be. Okay. So these types of things can have a massive impact on your microbiome. And so we want to make sure that we understand, one, what a microbiome is. And so that's a simple collection of the good and the bad within our guts, right? The good bacteria, even viruses are a part of that. Parasites, what do we have within us? Some of these things are naturally ingrained within us. Our good probiotics are inside of our bodies. Some of them are just what are known as commensal bacteria, or bacteria that are just found in there. Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, Morganella, Prevotella. Some of these ones are just random ones. Even yeast, Candida, things like that. It's normally found within our bodies. We just have to keep them in check. So microbiome is the generalized picture of what do I have within me. The big key concept with this too is you're never going to know what your microbiome looks like truly unless you test your microbiome. If you go to a gastroenterologist, they will not test your microbiome. I can almost guarantee that. How can I guarantee that? They don't have a medication to fix The microbiome. So why would they test it? First off, insurance won't cover it because there's no medical necessity to it. And second off, if they got it, like, I don't know, figure this out. Or there you go. There's your information. I don't know what to do with this, right? So you know what the microbiome is. How do we take a look at our microbiome? We want to take a look at it with a snapshot picture, right? With our GI map or a GI effect, something like that, some form of a stool test. If you need help, go to my lab shop. You can find it. Okay? Run that test, read that test, and figure out where you stand. All of those 2 tests that I mentioned there are going to have like these little sliding scales. GI map, you'll see it on page 2. You'll see exactly where your probiotics fall. GI effects will actually show you your values within like the normal range to let you know, hey, how was your density? How's your population of good guys? Okay. GI map is just super simple to read. I like it better. But anyways, so you can test it. After that, the next thing too is look at your lifestyle. How many things are you doing that would cause your microbiome to be damaged? Are you stressed out all the time? Are you not sleeping? Are you eating the standard American diet? Do you even know what protein is, right? Are you eating carbs all the time? Are you on birth control? Previous history of antibiotics? Or you have other medications, antidepressants, right? You can see the list keeps stacking on more and more and more and more things, because when we run these tests on patients, the first question most ask is, how the heck did I get this way? And we're groomed this way since birth. It's just a standard medical system. We got to snap ourselves out of it. So we need to teach ourselves as adults, what is the microbiome and how do we take care of it? But then my goal is for you to then teach your children how to protect their microbiome. Because in these 2 podcasts here, we're going to be talking about how the decisions you make for your child is going to develop how they grow, how they develop, right? Are they going to be obese? There's certain bacteria that can cause obesity. Are they going to have thyroid problems like you might have? And you'll say, oh, it's hereditary. When it's not. You pass down your dietary habits to your children. And so we cause stress and inflammation. The adrenals are burnt out. We can't convert T4 to T3. TSH then goes off. There's a whole host of things that can take place. But my goal is to pass this information, this like microbiome 101 information, off to you to then teach your children how to be healthy. And then when they grow up, they can teach their children, and then their children, and then their children, and so on and so forth. And we could stop eating and consuming the same way that we have for the last couple hundred years. This isn't good. It's not working out well for us. Why am I so passionate about the gut? My gut was a freaking wreck growing up. It was horrible. I had no idea what I was doing. My parents did the best they knew how to do, right? Especially my mom. She was trying to get me to eat as clean as possible. But I mean, let's be honest, right? It was stressful times back then. I'm 36 years old, going to be 37 in a couple months, right? And so back then, I had a running joke, like McDonald's, I think, created the 20-piece chicken McNugget because of me. I would order like 5-piece or 10-piece, whatever it was, chicken nuggets, and I would devour them. And that was like a treat after baseball or football. And it was like, I'd move my body and we'd be on the road to go to the next thing. And we were like, well, we don't have anywhere to go. So let's just grab McDonald's and let's go to the next thing. Let's go to the next thing. And I remember in high school having this vending machine down by, I think it was in between the gym, the pool I think was upstairs, but it was like the buses, the activity buses would round around Kiski area. And there was a big vending machine there. And I would get the Snyder's honey mustard pretzel pieces. They're delicious. They still are delicious. I don't know. I haven't had them in a long time. It may taste terrible now because my taste buds have changed. But I used to eat those all the time. Or Subway. Or like I would do what I had to do to get sustenance into my body. Throughout high school, I was eating protein bars, protein shakes. This is how I got the name protein. Like I was always trying to be as jacked and optimized as humanly possible, but I was doing it the wrong way. I developed severe acid reflux. I had severe gastroesophageal reflux disease. I had severe acne as well. I had anger issues. I had anxiety. I had so many symptoms that looking back now, I'm like, holy shit, my gut, my microbiome was a mess. And so it took me time, and high school wasn't even where that stopped. I carried it into college. I would drink a lot because of social anxiety. I would have 13 shots of alcohol, and you guys can judge me. I'm being fully transparent here. I just told our neighbors this story. I would have 13 shots of alcohol before I would go anywhere because I was so anxious, right? If anybody would talk to me, I'd be sweating. I'd be so, and now I'm doing this. I work with thousands of patients. I speak like I do. It's crazy now what can happen when you fix yourself. But back then, I had no idea what the heck to do. So I would drink like crazy, make terrible decisions, be depressed the next day, and I would eat entire pizzas. And I'm not talking gluten-free, dairy-free. I'm talking about Greeks. I think it was Bell's Greek Pizza at Penn State. I would crush their buffalo chicken pizzas, right? And that was like the testament of how drunk did I get that night, is how much pizza did I eat, okay? On top, what else did I eat? Let's just keep throwing me under the bus. I forget what this shop was called. It's called Are You Hungry? I don't know if they still have it at Penn State, but it was like fat kid food. It really was. You'd get this giant sub roll. You can get mozzarella sticks on it, cheese on it. You could fill it with the most disgustingly horrible food for your body. And the whole time I'm eating my emotions, right? Because I was anxious. So I would drink. So then I would eat, and then I would repeat, right? Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And it wasn't until I'm like, you know what? Enough's enough. This is ridiculous. Tired of my gut hurting. I can't do anything. My gut was so sensitive. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to figure out why and how. So I went to chiropractic school, learned how to eat healthier. Still drank a little bit then, but not too much. And then I started peeling back from that. And when I got my first job outside of chiropractic school, I was very clean. I didn't have time to really drink because I was working 6 days a week, and I would work at 7 a.m. So I had to get up and get going. But it's been this progression in my life, and it took me, 20, 25, 26 years for me to make a change, for me to make a difference, for me to want to change, where I had to hit this rock bottom piece. And so I don't have acid reflux anymore. My digestive tract is fantastic. I don't have social anxiety. I don't have acne anymore. I don't have the same issues that I had back then because I learned how to alter and change my microbiome. This is all about the microbiome. So take this information, consume this information, and start doing things that you can nourish your microbiome, right? Add protein into your diet. Add some amino acids too. So amino acids are broken down pieces of protein, more or less, and they'll help to rebuild your gut. So like glutamine, L-glutamine is one of the best things you can take to heal leaky gut, right? So the amino acid helps repair. Just like if you're a meathead and you're breaking down muscle tissue in the gym, they'll say, go drink or eat some glutamine powder, and that'll help you recover. Same thing for the gut. Okay. Work on mindful eating, work on some meditation too. Calm yourself down, get yourself out of that stressed state. If you're on birth control and those types of things, if you want to come off of those things, you can talk to me about it. I can't legally tell you to get on or off any medication, but I can coach you on it and what to say to your doctor if that is something that you would like to do, because no amount of birth control is safe for you. Okay. If you're on antidepressants, same thing. Find out that underlying cause, fix that trauma response, come off properly. You'll have to bring up some vitamins and nutrients and B vitamins and that. But you can do it. I've helped many people do it, and they're totally fine now. And so we're able to pull you away from medications by building your body up and finding out that underlying cause of why, right? If you're drinking alcohol, just stop it, right? Put the drink down. There's tons of non-alcoholic substitutions that you can do, these seltzer waters and all kinds of tonics and things of that nature. I'm not a big fan of them, but if you need to drink something, just do that. It's going to be better for you than drinking alcohol. Okay, if you're on antibiotics or if you're used to antibiotics, stop taking antibiotics and take something like an oil of oregano. Works just as good, if not better, than amoxicillin. It'll wipe pretty much anything out. Or use some colloidal silver. Use some of these natural healing agents that I've posted so many times about on my thread, on my feeds. Okay, use these natural things. Natural helps you to be able to kill what you need to, but then also help to repair. Make sure you get tested. Okay, test that gut. See what's going on in that microbiome. See where you are. Okay, see how many mistakes you're making just with everyday life or what you may have done in the past. And then make sure you make healthy alternatives to that. Okay, gluten, get rid of it. I wouldn't even say go gluten-free. Just go free of processed carbs. Just because it's gluten-free does not mean that it's healthy. It just means it doesn't have gluten. Still carbs, 9 times out of 10, still carbs, still going to convert into sugar within the body and can still fuel the same processes that gluten can cause, or gluten just causes more damage than just your standard, gluten-free stuff. Okay. Work on getting your sleep, work on drinking plenty of water, work on getting balanced rainbows of nutrients. And I'm not talking about pride rainbows. I'm talking about a nice rainbow, colorful plate of fruits, vegetables, things like that on your plate. The more you can do like that, the more you can increase diversity in your food, in your meals, the better your body will be, the more your body will thank you. And then you'll start intuitively eating, where prime example would be, if you've been away from red meat for too long and all of a sudden you're like, man, I need a steak. It's probably because your iron went low. Look at bruises. Do you have bruising that's taking place on your body that you have no idea where they came from? Probably coming from lack of iron, lack of red meat. So hopefully this will help you to understand what is the microbiome, what damages the microbiome, and then how can we work to fix it? It's not hard. It takes time. It takes repetition. It takes effort. We have to rethink and retrain our bodies to eat a certain way, and our bodies don't like it. It loves pattern and repetition. First 2 weeks are going to be miserable when you're trying to change these things. You're going to justify every single reason why you need to have that bit of sugar, or you need to have that bit of this or that bit of that, when in reality, it's not true. Just emotional justification for poor eating. So that concludes the video here on the microbiome. Thank you all for tuning in as usual. We're going to go deep into the gut here with this little series that we're doing. And I'm excited to go over this information with you all so that way you can put this into play in your life. Have a great one. I'll talk to y'all later.